Hi guys, and welcome back to another Show on the Buffalo video. Hope you've all been well. Now today we are covering Hisuian Goodra VSTAR. I've been dying to play this deck since it came out because it always struck me as a tempo deck in the way that you need to be quick off the mark and it's a slow and steady wins the race sort of thing. You tank a lot of hits and eventually you just out-resource your opponents, get to a point where they can't do enough damage to you to ever take a knockout. Now obviously with that being the case, you need to get to a point where you manage your own bench and you're not putting too many things on your bench. But thankfully, the main bench sitters in this deck are only all one prize cards anyway. You should only ever get to a point where your opponent has just the sole Hisuian Goodra VSTAR to deal with, and they just have trouble getting around it basically with the healing and the Fantina and its own attack, which is Rolling Iron, which reduces its damage that it takes by 80 during the next turn. So the fact that it takes 80 less damage basically gives you a health of 350 HP at max, obviously. So because of that, you plot your turns ahead in a sense where you look at your opponent's board, you figure out how much damage they can do. Can they do that amount of damage without bossing around it? And it'll get to a point where sometimes your opponent will like knock you for 90 and make you panic a little bit or something like that. But you just look at your opponent's board and like, well, do you know what? They've just knocked me for damage for 90, but they can't hit 260 next turn anyway, or 250. So you continue to plow on. You save your Moisture Star ability in that sense. You don't just like, at the moment you take damage, you don't just Moisture Star then because there's literally 0 point in doing that, and it's just a big waste of Goodra's effect. You want it to take at least a small and a big hit, which it has the ability to do if you play a single copy of Big Charm as well. Giving your Hisuian Goodra VSTAR an additional 30 health means that you're usually taking maybe even 3 attacks in some cases. The moment that one of my Goodra VSTARs taking 3 attacks on the ladder, my opponent is usually scooped at that point because they're just like, mate, I can't even get 2 prizes off this Pokemon I've hit 3 times. It's basically, it's ridiculous in regards to its tanking ability. And, it does suffer heavily to decks that do particularly one-shot, but, you've got ways to work around that. You've got ways of not benching out when it comes to being against Palkia. You've got Scoop Up Nets to take things off your bench in that case. And obviously against Ice Rider Calyrex, for example, they would have to hit the 250 with the Max Lance and have the Choice Belt, which is 280, and a Leon, and a Quick Shooting. So the Leon is 280, Choice Belt is 210, and the Quick Shooting is 230. But like I was saying before, because you have 280 HP and you take 80 less damage, which puts you to 350, that 4-card combo is still not enough to one-shot a Goodra VSTAR. And that's one of the heaviest hitters of the format. So, it speaks for itself in the fact that they're 2-shotting you, even a big hitter like that, and you're taking a 2-hit on their Pokemon in exchange. But at that point, you also, if you ever take an attack like that, that is when you'd Moisture Star. And, even if you had the Big Charm on at that point as well, they would need a Zigzagoon and 4 Scoop Up Nets, and I don't think even that gets them there. So, it's incredible how much this Pokemon can take on the chin and not go down. It's incredible. So, going into the main engine is the Lost Zone engine, which is just came around in Lost Origins. And our main points of this engine are both Comfey, which once per turn when it's in the active spot, look at the top 2, put one in a Lost Zone and put the other one into your hand. It's basically like the old Pidgeotto, the airmail Pidgeotto, but it's more dedicated towards a Lost Zone. So whereas Pidgeotto would pick 2 up, keep on your hand, put one to the bottom of your deck, this obviously puts one in your hand and puts one to a Lost Zone instead. So, therefore accelerating the Lost Zone mechanics. So obviously the other Lost Zone engine is this, where you look at the top 5 cards, you add 3 of them to your hand and you put the other 2 in the Lost Zone. So this only ever puts 2 in the Lost Zone maximum. Like, when you're getting to learn how to play this deck, don't think that it puts 3 in the Lost Zone. Like, I've seen so many players promote things other than their Comfey with a Colress Experiment in hand, play the Colress Experiment, got to 6 in the last zone instead of 7 and was like, wait, why didn't I promote my Comfey? I'm like, yeah, well done, genius. So there's loads of things around the Lost Zone engine that make it really good. And again, to get this deck moving, you do have to be quick off the mark. So a lot of people use a lot of ball search cards, but I've dialed back on the ball search cards and opted for more battle VIP passes. And to see them early games to really get our engine going, I've opted for the just a 2 of Poker Gear, just so you've got a higher chance of seeing Colorless Experiment, because that is the best card of the engine. Other than that, we do play 4 Battle VIP Pass. Now, you could argue playing 3 of this and playing 1 Quick Ball, 1 more Quick Ball or 1 more Ultra Ball. However, I like the count that it is because they tend not to be so much of a dead card down the road due to the Comfey putting them into the Lost Zone occasionally, which really helps in that aspect. A lot of players would also play 2 Air Balloon. I've opted for 1. I think 1 is enough. If you're using your switching options correctly and efficiently, 4 Scoop Up Nets, 2 Switch and 1 Escape Rope should be enough. 2 Air Balloon. I mean, if they get rid of it, then so be it. You've still got 7 switch outs or 7 pivot options in the deck. So it should never be really a big issue. One more card that we do have to accelerate our getting cards into our Lost Zone is Lost Vacuum. This is extremely good. It gets rid of Paths to the Peak, which actually prevents our ability, because our ability is a VSTAR power, so obviously Paths to the Peak shuts that down. And in the process of getting rid of Paths to the Peak, it also puts an additional card into the Lost Zone for yourself as well, because you put a card from your own hands into the Lost Zone. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. It removes big chance from your opponents, for example. Now, I would argue that it might be potentially worth playing 2 of the Cramorants in this deck, solely because Miltank can be a pain. However, I play 1 Cramorant, sorry, so used to Cramomatic, 1 Cramorant and 1 Ordinary Rod to recycle some of the necessary evils like Manaphy and Cramorant, and also getting some of our energy back, because we do have a separate draw engine in Raging Greninja that allows us to discard an energy every turn and draw 2 cards. So that's enough for the deck list anyway. We do play 3 Crystal Cave just for an additional little bit more healing, and also as a counter to the Path to the Peak. If you would prefer to play Lake Acuity, by all means try it, but you take 20 less damage from Lake Acuity, whereas you heal a direct 30 from Crystal Cave. Now, those numbers to me basically tell me that Crystal Cave is the clearer option in that sense. So yeah, so that's all for the deck list anyway, and we'll be right back with some games. So we get our first match, and we do flip the coin and flip tails, which is what I tend to choose. And we start a Comfey, which is good. We don't start much else out of Comfey. We have our Hisuian Goodra in hand plus attachment, which is always nice. And it would seem like our opponent's playing that Worlds deck that they all play. We already have a Colorless Experiment in hand, so we're just going to keep the Goodra VSTAR here. Place it down and pass turn. It's a bit of a slower start, and it does mean that we do have all 4 Battle VIP Pass in deck, which isn't great, but here's what it is. So it's one of our slower starts, and we weren't fast off the mark as per the build of the deck, as per the attempted build of the deck is meant to be anyway. You could argue as well, if building this deck yourself, because you plan on taking hits and not being so aggressive, you could go down to just a singular copy of Boss's Orders and play an extra ball search card. That might be even better. So we have... We'll take the Air Balloon for now. With any luck, we will delve a little bit deeper into the deck. I try and get as many That's an unfortunate loss, losing that, but we do need... I mean, we can find another Hisuian Goodra down the line, to be honest. I am going to keep the Fantina in this case, because we do play 3-3 of Hisuian Goodra, and like I say, you can survive that many attacks that you can basically just run off one in the meantime anyway. Again, we do have a Hisuian Goodra VSTAR in hand. So I think I'm just going to take these. Go here. Now, the only question is, we can swing in with Cramorant this turn and just get a bit of chip damage on it. And we do have a Mirage Gate in hand, so... the only problem with Mirage Gate is we need 7, we've only got 6 at the moment. If we can find a scoop up net here, then we'll be set for next turn to go in with Cramorant. And we do not, so that's the other Hisuian Goodra V that we do need. And we're not going to bench it yet, because that would be senseless. And we are unfortunately just going to have to pass. If my opponent has Marnie Path, then so be it. But it would be worth evolving this in the meantime if that's the case. Yeah, I think we're just passing there. So, not the fastest of turns. Like, I realistically did really want to attack with Cramorant that turn and get some chip damage on this, but it is what it is. It's not too much of an issue. They're going to take 1 prize. We're going to hit into them. They'll hit into us. And then the following turn we'll Fantina and they'll never be able to knock us out. And then we'll Moisture Star. Well, we'll see how it goes anyway. If my opponent just goes Marnie Path here, then so be it. But we'll see what those 2 cards in hand are first. My opponent's taking a while to play them, so there we go. I'll probably deciding whether it's a good attack in this match, and it does skew the prize trades, but you know, barely a little bit. You're 2-shot most things anyway, and it's not like, I think just V-Stars in general and the Vs are better to play in this matchup. And did we see a Path to the Peak or just Marnie? Yeah, and he'll probably Marnie into a Path to the Peak. So many people are playing this deck online at the moment. It's like, try building something original from Lost Origins, please. So he's Crobatting to try and find Path to the Peak, and he's benched 2 of these. Like, this is kind of bad for my opponent, to be honest, because these are all Rolling Stone boss targets. Like, not that, obviously. So thankfully we do get to Quick Ball, and I think it'll be our first loss of energy as well. Oh, we've lost one to our lost zone, but we lost one. So we can, oh my god, Quick Ball away this. Get the Raging Greninja. Don't need another Hisuian Goodra down for a while. We obviously need to find a Mirage Gate this turn. And how many Comfies have we lost? We lost 1 Comfy, 2 Comfy. Do we have more on the prize or something? I don't know if I want to play us here. I might just play it here actually, because it does allow us to use the potential. Do you know what? We're going to do this first. Polaris Experiment, there we go. So I think we're just going to dig a little bit deeper with the Raging Greninja, because it can discard any energy, not just basic energy. We're just looking for Mirage Gate. We do not hit one. So, I mean, we can't lose that many energy. lose 1 energy. And we'll keep the Poke Gear. So we're going to Poke Gear for nothing apparently. There was a Mirage Gate there as well, that was unfortunate. We need to go in a little bit deeper. I don't know, I think we've prized 2 Comfey, which is really bad. Alrighty then, so we're just going in with Spit Shot this turn. Spit innocently even. That is a terrible, terrible attack name. Especially with how dirty it looks. I hope we get a promo of this card. I want a trainer gallery version of this card. It's really good. So the boss on the Comfey. Okay. I mean, that's fine, I think. I might even just send this in and, well, we'll see. So we are going to switch. And yeah, I think bossing this in, or bossing this in, would be nice. Because then my opponent will probably never attach to this again and just attach a DTE to here, which limits his damage output as well. So, do my opponent have 2 bosses in a row? I guess we'll find out. I mean, my opponent could potentially fly here, which would be a problem. But it will not reduce the damage done to myself. It only prevents the damage and effects done to this if they fly. And I would assume they're not going to evolve this one. That to me sounds... Okay, never mind. See, it seemed to me like that was a particularly bad idea, because I've just hit it for 110, which means it's got 200 left. And this is why we kept the Crystal Cave. I've no reason to play it, so why play it? Just because you can play a card doesn't mean you always should. Resource conservation. Many things that I've been trying to teach my fellow players recently. So how many energy are we down? 3, 4, 5. 5 out of 12. Mirage Gate, thank you. Which one do we need? We've got one. Got both. So, do you know what? I'm going to keep the water in there in case I ever need to Mirage Gate to the Raging Greninja. And I think I'm just going to roll an iron. That's all we need to do. There's the DC on there, which we expected. So there's damage all over my opponent's board at the moment, but there's still a Crobat that's like waiting to be bossed down the line. And this is where I was saying in the intro, like, it may seem like my opponent's ahead, and they could literally boss in my Raging Greninja here, but not many of these decks play what's it called? The Echoing Horn. So if my opponent bosses in my Raging Greninja right now, I'm like not fussed at all. Is he going to try and fly? He misses it. So we take our first 2 prizes, which is good. Don't need to play any of these cards in hand, which you no need. And just like that, we're immediately back in the game. I said cave then because I've got it from the prizes. We have all of our crystal caves. My opponent is dying to play his Rock Sign hand. I can guarantee it. But it's just not going to happen. If he puts this in the active, it would be a sure way to tell me that they have Roxanne, basically. I would potentially assume that there's a Marnie coming at this point, but with 2 Colorless Experiments still on their deck, more Ball Search cards, energies. Yeah, so there's the Marnie, not a problem. How many paths to the peaks my opponent down? Just 1. And that's exactly why I wasn't going to play 1. So we've taken 110 damage. So that puts us on 160 HP. My opponent knew what was going on there. They still didn't have the damage to take the knockout next turn. Like, because I was on 160 HP, but I was about to do Rolling Iron, which puts me back up to 240, and there's nothing in my opponent's deck that hits for 240. I was going to take another knockout, and by that point I could have potentially found Stadium. So it just wasn't happening for my opponent there, and that's how the deck should be. And we'll just go straight back to the deck list. So having a look at this deck list, we have again a 3-3 line of Goodra. Seems to me to be enough, because sometimes you can just sit on 1 and tank that World Championship deck all day. Like, as you can see there, my opponent had damage all over the board, and even after bossing something in, whilst I was under path to the peak, he knew full well there was nothing in his deck that could hit for 240 next turn, and there's nothing on his bench. There was no like single prizer that he could just come in with and hit for 240. Like, it's just not happening. Like, this deck just tanks so much, and I love it. You do have to be quick off the mark, and I will say, and I'll do it now actually, I will say that potentially 1 boss's orders less. Having 1 in the deck is fine because you've got Power Pad, and I would just say run another Quick Ball potentially. So we'll do that now, make that edit now. Quick Ball only because, only because it just helps you find comfy without having to, you know, ditch too many resources. So that's a new build, and that's how slow I was off the deck in that game as well. As you've seen how although I was built to be a fast off the mark deck, slow mid-range game, and then as soon as I'm at the 7 in the Lost Zone, it's bam, you know, all gates are open, Mirage gates open, that is. And then you've got access to Fantina the following turn when you get to 10. Like, it is a tempo deck, you just build up to it, but being quick off the mark and setting up efficiently and effectively is the first and foremost key of this deck. So taking out 1 boss, because obviously I had 2 boss clogging up my open hand, and potentially if that was another Quick Ball, then I would have been attacking as early as turn 2, and my opponent would have had 0 chance to win that game if that was the case. So, hope you've all enjoyed watching anyway. I'll scroll this down a little bit just so you can see the energy count a bit more. There's 5 water, 5 metal, and 2 capture energy. I think capture energy is amazing in this deck because it gives you your energy attachment of turn and another Comfey, and another Goodra, and Raging Greninja, or like it's just so good. So, and there's so many basics in this deck, yeah. So yeah, thank you all for watching, guys. Hope you really enjoyed it. Please drop a like down below if you did. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we will be doing more Lost Origin content down the line. See you all soon, guys. Peace.